Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the DNA of modern government power structures by answering one foundational question that dictates how billions of people are governed every single day. What exactly is federalism? It's not just some political buzzword. It's literally the invisible architecture of our society.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Defining federalism. 2. Federal versus unitary systems. 3. Key features of federalism. And 4. Routes to forming federations. All right, Section 1, Defining Federalism. Let's clear up exactly how power is shared.
You know, it's incredibly easy to get totally lost in the terminology. Is a government union? Is it federal or central? When you've got local leaders, state representatives, and national figures all seemingly issuing directives at the exact same time, the overlapping authority can honestly look like chaos. But this confusion is a legitimate political complexity, and that's exactly why we need to nail down a strict, foundational definition.
So the crucial takeaway here is that federalism is, fundamentally, a system of sharing. It's a setup where power is explicitly divided between a central authority and various constituent units, which we usually call states or provinces. Instead of having one central boss who dictates absolutely everything from the top down, the power is strictly partitioned. You typically have one government for the entire country handling big-picture subjects of common national interest, and then provincial or state governments looking after the day-to-day administration of their specific regions. And here is why this matters so much. These state governments aren't just middle managers executing orders. They hold genuine sovereign power in their designated spheres. This division acts as a critical safeguard, preventing central overreach and making sure that regional voices have actual protected authority.
If we map out federal political systems worldwide, you'll spot massive countries like Canada, the United States, Brazil, Russia, India, and Australia. You kind of notice a pattern right away, don't you? Most of the world's geographically large countries use this exact federal system, and that is absolutely not a coincidence. When you're dealing with a vast territory, trying to micromanage everything from one single capital city just doesn't work. The sheer geographic realities, combined with incredibly diverse localized needs, stretching across hundreds or thousands of miles, literally necessitate a decentralized approach to governance.
But get this, out of the 193 countries in the world, only 25 actually have federal political systems. Just 25! But here's the kicker. The citizens of those 25 countries make up a staggering 40% of the entire global population. So while it might not be the most common system if you're just counting countries, its impact on the human population and global geopolitics is absolutely massive.
Moving on to Section 2, Federal versus Unitary Systems. Let's see how they stack up against each other.
Consider the unitary system first. In this setup, the center is absolute. There's either only one level of government, or the subunits are entirely subordinate to that central authority. The central government can pass down direct orders that local municipalities literally must follow. They only exercise powers delegated to them, powers that can be revoked at any time. But flip over to a federal system, and the dynamic is completely different. The central government can't just order a state government to take a specific action within the state's protected sphere. The state has its own independent powers, and it isn't simply answerable to the center. Instead, both of these governments are answerable directly to the people. This drastically changes your voting power as a citizen because you're electing distinct representatives for distinct, autonomous levels of governance.
All right, Section 3, Key features of federalism. Let's look under the hood at the mechanics.
Structurally speaking, a true federation requires at least two tiers of government. And here's the really fascinating paradox about that. These different tiers govern the exact same citizens. You are simultaneously answering to a mayor, a governor, and a president. So to prevent utter legislative chaos, each tier has to stay in its own distinctly marked lane. Each one has its own specific authority or jurisdiction in matters of legislation, taxation, and administration.
To clarify that a bit, we really need to understand the word jurisdiction. Jurisdiction simply means the strict area over which a level of government has legal authority. Now, this area might be defined by physical, geographical boundaries, or it might be defined by certain kinds of subjects. Think about it like this: national defense and foreign policy. Those are strictly the jurisdiction of the central government. But local road maintenance or regional water management, that falls squarely to the state or local government. This means that simply crossing a physical state line can completely change the legal jurisdiction you're standing in, subjecting you to an entirely different set of rules for things like commerce, education, or even criminal law.
But wait, how do we make sure the central government doesn't just gradually swallow up the states? Well, through constitutional protections.
Those jurisdictions we just talked about are explicitly specified in a written constitution, meaning the very existence and authority of each tier is guaranteed by the highest law of the land. On top of that, the fundamental provisions of that constitution cannot be changed unilaterally. The central government can't just wake up one day and vote to abolish a state. Such existential changes require the consent of both levels. And crucially, each level of government has specific revenue sources detailed right in the Constitution. Because let's be real, you can't be independent if someone else controls your wallet. Financial autonomy is the absolute bedrock of political autonomy.
Now, of course, when you have two powerful entities sharing authority over the exact same citizens, clashes are pretty much inevitable. When two levels of government fight over who has the authority to act, constitutional crises loom. That's exactly where an independent judiciary steps in to act as the ultimate umpire. The highest court in a federal system has the absolute power to interpret the Constitution and delineate the powers of the different levels. If a dispute pops up between the center and the states, the highest court makes the final, binding call to keep that intricate power balance in check.
And this brings us to the core magic trick, the really elegant balancing act of federalism. It has to simultaneously pull together and push apart. It engineers national unity while vigorously defending regional diversity. It's essentially the definitive solution to the massive problem of keeping a highly varied population unified under one flag on the world stage, while still fiercely respecting and empowering their unique regional identities, languages, and cultural practices back at home.
But, all the constitutional rules, umpires, and structural features in the world mean absolutely nothing without the human element. Ultimately, this entire machinery rests upon an unwritten social contract fueled by two essential ingredients: deep mutual trust between the different levels of government and a firm, ongoing agreement to live together. When that trust breaks down, when states no longer believe the center is acting in good faith, or the center starts viewing the states as rogue actors, even the most flawlessly written federal constitution can fail. It takes a continuous, active commitment to actually share power.
Finally, Section 4, Routes to Forming Federations. Let's look at how these systems actually come to life.
Federations generally form through two distinct historical routes. The first is what we call the coming together route. This is where previously independent sovereign states voluntarily join up to form a larger unit. By pooling their sovereignty while keeping their unique identities, they exponentially boost their economic and military security. In this system, all the constituent states usually enter as equals and hold robust equal power. The USA is your classic example here. Independent colonies coming together for mutual security against external threats. Then you have the holding together route. This happens when a large, already existing centralized country makes the conscious decision to divide its power between constituent states and the national government. Why do that? Mostly to manage vast internal diversity and keep the country from fracturing. India is a prime example. They decentralized power to accommodate staggering linguistic and cultural diversity across a massive population. In this setup, the central government tends to retain slightly more power than the individual states, acting as a strong anchor to keep a diverse nation firmly held together.
As we wrap up this explainer, take a second to think about the rules governing your own community versus the laws coming from your national capital. Federalism is a complex, sometimes exceptionally messy dance of power, but it is the invisible glue holding much of our modern world together. So the question I want to leave you with is this: as our world becomes more technically interconnected and economically globalized, will this delicate balance of power sharing hold strong, or will the center inevitably pull tighter? Keep observing and keep questioning.